Hello everyone, this is Edray1416 here with a video that I never ever thought that I was going to make. This video is called Public Education versus Private Education. Now why did I decide to make this video? Well, an anarcho-capitalist buddy of mine named Esoteric Entity made a video called Why Public Schools Should Be Abolished. That and the success of my video Law Enforcement versus Private Security inspired me to make this video. So what I'm going to do is try to elaborate the difference between these two entities. Public education, an institution in which the government, through taxpayer dollars, creates a system where students are federally obligated to perform from the time they are 4 years old to the time they are 18 years old just to get a piece of paper. Some people graduate late. I should know because I was 19 years old when I graduated high school on June 6, 2006, a couple of months before my 20th birthday. Public education has basically become an institution that forces students to memorize everything they learn without actually applying these things they learn. Instead of actually preparing students for the real world, the public education system forces these students to prepare for a standardized test that is not even relevant to the curriculum they learned that school year. The negative effects of the public education system aside from taxpayer cost are nervous breakdowns, injuries brought on by carrying a lot of books, poor grades, and a student's inability to make friends. This is vastly different than the education system 65 years ago. Back then, kids didn't have to study mercilessly and they made much better grades. I understand technology is essential in schools, but don't throw common sense out the window. Private education, an institution in which people privately pay a certain amount of money to enroll their students. Now, private education was and always will be a controversial subject, because of how expensive private education is. The government is always discouraging people from paying for an independent institution citing expenses when they claim public school is cheaper. That is a bold-faced lie, and I will explain that in a minute. In private schools, you don't have to carry an awful lot of books, and the amount of study time is a fraction of what public school students have to do. Yes, you'll still be evaluated by grades, participation, among other things. The negative effects of the private education system aside from people paying the school straight out of pocket are strict dress codes and strict teachers. Personally, I don't think it's bad to have shrewd teachers that aren't afraid to tell it like it is. Alright, the moment we are waiting for, the true cost of both institutions. Let's start with the cost of the public education system. The average cost of public schools per student in America is over $11,000 a year. So for the average family of 4, the parents are paying over $22,000 in taxes a year for their children's education at a public school. Now let's compare that to the average cost of private schools per student in America. The cost of a parent paying a private institution up front in America is a little over $10,000 a year. But remember, the money in private schools go toward a lot of things: books, technology, paying teachers' salaries, and paying the bills, taxes to support the public education system. For the education system, taxes go toward teachers' unions, school administrators, etc. Teachers do not get paid unless they have tenure in the union. Teachers in private schools do not get paid a lot of money due to a lack of subsidies that public school teachers get from unions and taxpayer dollars. But for what it's worth, teachers are a lot more respected and less biased in private schools because they are actually teaching what the curriculum is supposed to be. Remember, public school teachers get $50,000 a year via taxpayer dollars. Plus they get benefits and a nice pension plan at the expense of taxpayers. Meanwhile, private school teachers make an average of $36,000 a year from private donations. Parents of private school students, churches, and private events for fundraising. But why are private school teachers willing to take a cut in pay? Better working conditions. They don't have to answer to school administrators nor department directors. They have to answer to the principal of the private school, so that makes the working conditions better. If the teachers work in better conditions, it leads to a positive attitude for the teachers, and if the teachers have a positive attitude while they are working, it inspires students to behave better and work harder. So this begs the question, why are private schools being vilified for being expensive when public schools are actually more expensive nationally? Because it would affect the bottom line of teachers' unions. Also, it would affect the pay of school administrators looking to get every incentive such as preparing students for standardized testing. Now, Esoteric Entity pointed out in his video that if there were more private schools around in America, including small towns, it would actually make private schools less expensive because there's more competition in the market. Private schools revolve around enterprise, while public schools revolve around subsidies and regulation from the local, state, and federal government. The best part about private schools are that you can have a private school of any kind. A private school that is sponsored by a church, Catholic, Baptist, Presbyterian, or even Methodist. If you're an atheist, there are private schools for people that want to learn the basics of common sense. The more private schools there are, the cheaper the cost to put a student through school, which in turn will give private schools better resources. Not only that, but teachers will make more money yearly depending on their performances teaching students. If teachers screw up, they either deserve to be fired or not get a bonus that year. In public schools, if a teacher has tenure, they cannot be fired since it would violate arbitration laws. That means a tenured teacher can still work and still get paid regardless of public opinion. Why would someone willingly pay taxes on teachers that are not performing their task right? It's a waste of taxpayer dollars and an example of tax dollars going to waste. Also, the other issue are property taxes. Everyone has to pay property taxes. But why are property taxes unbearable year after year? Because those taxes go toward paying the bills of every public school in America. Back in the old days, property taxes went toward courthouses, police stations, etc. And the sickest thing about this is that public school teachers make as much money as law enforcement officers do, while private school teachers and private security officers make less. Remember, our tax dollars are paying exorbitant money to people that are limited as to what they can do, people that have unions backing them. For those that now understand the differences between public education and private education, what are your views on education now? If it were up to me, I would give a child a choice. Either go to school or go to work. If a child decides to go to work at the age of 4 rather than go to school, work can be their education. The more experience they gain starting off as an apprentice, they'll have a sustainable job for years. If a child decides to fence, they can assess the levels of a fence post to see if it's level. If a child decides to be a butcher, they can start their apprenticeship by wrapping meat and clean up the butcher shop at the end of the day. However, child labor laws will not allow children to work under the age of 16 from a legal standpoint. If a child decides to go to school, let the parent donate to a private school, and I promise you the child will get an amazing education. What would you rather have? Your child go to public school and sit through 8 hours of incompetent teachers lecturing nonsense? Or would you put your child through private school where teachers are motivated to actually teach the right curriculum? I understand homeschooling is a third option, but it would require one of the parents to devote their entire time educating their kid. Even homeschooling has issues. Esoteric Entity, I want to thank you for inspiring this video. Anyway, I'm Edray, and I'm out of here.